Alright, welcome to another Shinobi collection video. And for this video, let's talk about every unit that was released in 2021. At least all the, all the good units that came out. Maybe we'll talk about the bad ones too, but let's do this just so we can see how much the meta changed from early 2020, well, end of 2020, and into the end of 2021. So end of 2020, the latest unit that was released in 2020 was this Madara right here. And let's zoom in to make it nice. So this Madara was the last unit to come out in 20. The first unit to come out in 2021 was Kizuna V2, Sasuke and Itachi. This is the first unit that came out this year, so the way they changed the meta, if you guys remember, this meta was terrifying because Kizuna Itachi. So the way the meta was before was that there was rarely any state removals, and if they did, state removal was usually tied into skill 2. But these characters made it so states was removed so easily. And just because of that, this was the start of the no state meta. There was characters before such as GK, Kaguya, both V1 and V2, where it just prevented you from having your state up. But this character was truly the character that really solidified that states will not be staying. You could put them up, but there's a high chance they will not stay just because of these characters. So when they first came out, these characters were easily in the triple S tier. They were the best character to ever come out in the game during that time. There was nothing you can do about it, and if they ever get their Kizuna skill up, you were dead. So Itachi was really strong. Sasuke wasn't that useful because Sasuke only did his damage against Akatsuki. During this time, Akatsuki wasn't a thing, because all the Akatsuki unit came out early in 2020, I believe, or years before, I don't remember. But Akatsuki didn't really exist, and all he did was remove terrain, which is really solid. You would use this Sasuke anytime you fight an Akatsuki. You would start with Itachi, switch to Sasuke, and then do your stuff. If we could do the translation here, I'm not really gonna read everything like the OP characters because most of us already know what they do, but I will read over those characters that are pretty strong but died really fast. And really good to talk about that because the next characters to come out after them was Haku and Zabuza. At the start of the month, we got pre-Shippuden character, and that stayed for the entire month. When we first got these characters, we thought that we will be doing the Dokkan, where we will be going through each arc of Naruto, starting with Haku and Zabuza. In Origin, Haku combined with Zabuza, if we had both of them, I think I have a live stream of these, of showing off how strong these two are. If we had these two combined, they were really strong. So for Haku was an AoE character who inflicts block state. That alone made him, I almost call him a her, really strong, because block state is one of the best special state in the game, because that just disables enemy skills. At the start of battle, you just use S1 if you get them a lot, and it's really strong. And then if there's a Zabuza ally, you have the miss state, and then guaranteed extra turn, you insta cast S2, which is protection state and resurrection state, kind of cooperation state. So these two together just work really well. And then we got to look at Zabuza too. Zabuza was single target, but he's sealed, and if the enemy sealed, he did 3 additional attacks. And then Shadow State, which is a really strong defensive state. So Shadow State first came out with, I believe, Destroyer Anbu. And what this does is it makes it so you take percentage skill damage away, off. So the way the meta is right now, at the end of 2021, is we have damage limit. Any damage past 700,000, which is your average damage limit, is staying at 700,000. But if you reduce incoming skill damage by 10,000%, that's doing 1 damage. So this is, funny enough, is way stronger than damage limit. This effect is a lot stronger than damage limit. Because with damage limit, no one has you need plus 10,000% skill damage buff just to negate this. And we have characters in the game, I believe it's Sasuke or Madara. I forget which one. But there's a character in the game, maybe it's even Pain, I don't remember. There are so many unique stats, but there is a character in the game that makes it so you remove all skill damage buff. So if we ever get a character in a unique skill that just says incoming skill damage minus X%, there's a chance that that will overtake damage limit. So cross your fingers that we don't get this. So that's why Shadow State is really strong. There's another unit that has this same effect that took over the meta. I think that character came out in 2020. Let me double check. But this character was also a pain to fight. Let me just double check when this character came out. Yeah, it came out early in 2020. But this character, funny we're talking about 2020 unit. But this character started with Tsukuyomi State, which is incoming skill damage minus 10,000%. If you'd ever fought this character before, you had to remove this state, or else your AoE will be doing 1 damage. So that's why Shadow State is really strong. And I believe he started with Shadow State if there's a Haku. Yeah, that's why these two were really strong back then. Because if you remove Shadow State, you inflict restraint. So he could not counter, but he could kind of be there against Itachi. And then she just buffing incorporation. So that's why these two were really strong. If you had them together, I would put them in the S+ tier. If you had them alone, they're not that strong, but you need both. After that, the next 90 cost we got was GK Gaara. This was his birthday character. And this character was a really strong 3v3 unit. But for PvP, he could be countered. Especially if you had characters like that just remove the state. But for him, he starts with his terrain up that makes him pretty much have type advantage against everyone. Cancels. What is in English? It should be translated. He's under love stick. He deals 10 additional attack. 10 additional attacks back then. This is when we started getting high numbers. So Sasuke had 17. Itachi had 21. And then Gaara has 10. But the thing is, Itachi was only 25,000 base damage. So that was very weak. While this one is 100k. And this is at the time when additional attacks didn't really do big damage, because most additional attacks had low base stats like this. 100k nowadays might not even cross the 700,000 damage limit. But he removes positive God State. God State? Yeah, positive God State, not special state. That's why Shadow State will counter this. And then he started restoring, as I said before, and he insta-casts S1. Is it S1? He insta-casts something, doesn't he? Yeah, he insta-casts S1 over here. So in 3v3, he was one of the best 3v3 characters because he can insta-clear a stage really fast. Especially since you can pick whatever character you want. And then after that, we got our first base 7-star 40 cost. 40 cost was actually used back then because their kit wasn't that behind. So this one-tailed Naruto was probably the best 40 cost unit in the game. 40 cost PvP was still a thing back then. So 40 cost PvP ever came out, this Naruto was the most used character. It's because he AoE cancels. If we were, how many additional? That deals, just one additional attack. So this Naruto was a reminiscence of Edo Itachi and Edo Nagato, where it's just an AoE get. That was really strong because we're at the point at this time where not a lot of 40 cost was worked on. you don't put skip immunity to 40 cost, so this always worked. And he had a chance to ignore multiple live, which was really solid. And then he had the smoke screen state, which is, I think I called it distract state now. Or is it, no, intimidate state. Intimidate was a okay skill. You needed that to be up for a couple of characters in the game, but that's not what you're really using for. You use it for his AoE skip. I think he insta-cat. Or he has first strike. And then he inflicts intimidate when he dies, so he has an upon death effect, which is just a paralysis. But during this time, we didn't really consider how strong status effects were. But thinking about this now, when he dies, he inflicts paralysis. He has 5 withstand, so he was very tanky for a 40 cost unit. So if I were to rate him back then, 40 cost, he was triple S. And for normal PvP, I will put him as an S, because I remember using him a lot just for that AoE skip, which was very valuable. And Gaara was a double S tier. And then after that, we got Minato. Minato was kind of the worst character during this month. He didn't really do much. He was an AoE unit. He has his flash mode up. He did 5 additional attacks. Additional 5 more if it's a non-unit. Non-characters during this time period sucked. So he was worse than Gaara. Not always hit. That comes into effect because there's a lot of dodging you. Like himself. He has a skill dodge plus 200%. So if he fought himself, he can't hit himself. He did counterattack damage. And then this is a weird one. I think he increased speed every turn. In the end of the day, he wasn't really that strong. He was always flash. And then if there's a non-enemy, there needs to be a non-enemy for him to have his flash mode god state up. Flash mode marking. Yeah, flash mode type 0. He had 2 revive, which is back then, I guess, average. And then every 90 cost god back then, well, every god is 90 cost. Every god back then had damage cut against 40 cost. So that was really stupid, because that never mattered. And then he had 50% speed per turn. He wasn't really that strong. I believe he first introduced. He was the first character to introduce a brand new ability 3. That's his calling. And all it did was give damage cut plus 50% to him and non-blue against red type. It didn't really come into effect on like how strong it is, but it wasn't really strong back then. Because red types, if I remember correctly, it was only Itachi that was really strong. So the next character was 6-star Kakashi. This character was the replacement for Origin Kakashi. So he is your instant guidance character. I used him a bit, and to be honest, he was really strong in 40 cost, as you would expect. But in normal PvP, there's just not enough team slots for him to be in. You just gotta remember too, during this time, the team cost of PvP was a bit lower than what it is now. Now it's 5v5 and I think 270. Back then, it's less than that. I think it's also much. It might actually still be 270, but it was also 4 units. So you could have ran, I believe, either 2 or 3 90 costs, plus a 0 cost Kizuna. The meta back then during this time was you run V1 at 0 cost or V2 at 0 cost, plus 90 cost units. 40 costs was pretty much if you didn't have a Kizuna 0 cost. But this Kakashi just didn't have any team slots, so I would probably put him in B tier during this time. This Minato is probably in A+. Izuna. This character was the best character to come out during this time. He was the best character. He overtook Kizuna Kakashi. Around this time, this is 108, so I believe Izuna was the very first character. This is a February character. So what he did was, if you know, because he's still being used today, especially with his LP, he inflict illusion. Preemptive inflict illusion if you have an Uchiha on your team. And you did, because you would run him with an Uchiha. Doesn't matter what Uchiha you ran, because Itachi is on Uchiha, so you would run these two together. And it is a Konoha enemy, you insta-cast S1. You only had 1 revive, thankfully. So if you could get past his illusion and his disabling of states. But he was type advantage because he made everyone weak to fire, and he did 2 additional attacks. So he would most likely one-shot you while removing your state. And then his S2 God state, if this was ever put up, this removes terrain or like immune to terrain. Yeah. And then if Izuna dies, this gets passed on to an ally. So that was really fun. This state never really expired because it'll just keep passing on. You just had to remove it. But yeah, he was the best character in the game. Literally, PvP during this time was very toxic because everyone would just get hit by illusion like turn 1. There's nothing you can do. Then after him, we got our base 7-star Sasuke. And he sucked. There's nothing really to talk about. He's single target. He didn't do any damage. Like, he did 1 additional attacks per 5 village enemy. If you're fighting none, he did 0 additional attacks. He was really fast, and I think that's it. He had 9 withstand, which is just his unique factor. He has the 2nd highest withstand count in the game. The highest is Hashirama with 10. And he had a damage cut 50% if there's a 5 village enemy. But he wasn't really that used because we're here during this time. Single targets were starting to die out. So him being single target hurts. He doesn't really do much. I think he had the lightning protection state, but this is the start when state started dying. So like you can never keep his state up. Like Izuna can keep his state up because he keeps getting passed along, but he doesn't require a state. And also during this time, I'm talking about positive state getting removed. Negative state stayed. There's not a lot of negative state immunity here. I think this is just one of those. But there wasn't really a lot of party granting negative special or god state removal effect. I think Shisui was still going so strong. And then Konan, you could use Konan to counter Izuna because Izuna's illusion is only 1 turn. But when you get hit by illusion, it skips your action. And if you have an extra turn character, you get your action back. I actually just started talking randomly and that jump scared me a bit. But back to Konan. I forgot what I was talking about. But Konan countered Izuna just because of her extra turn. So she gets extra turn after the illusion, and that was it. Then after that, we get our very first Enbu character. Back then, they didn't have the Enbu name. They were hard to level up because this was the first stage 9 unit in the game. And the material to use the stage 9 them was very rare. We got 3 a day for ranking anywhere in 3v3. And that wasn't enough. And I think you got 5 in P, maybe even more. But the best way to stage 9 them was buying the pack. It was $100. You get a ticket and you get 100 of the materials to stage 9 them. That was the pain. But the difference between having them and not having them in your party was gigantic. These characters introduced formation, which broke the game in a good way. Formation, as of right now, today, is still being used. Enbus, well, back then they're called duos, are the most important slot in your team for the longest. Just because the formation provides something that no one else can provide. They provide prevention of instant action, first strike, and instant cast for the enemy. That itself was very, very strong. Without that, you could just lose the fight without being able to fight back. They could remove negative special and god state every turn. I think that's selfish, so I think they only do it for the character that took the action. Let me look at the Japanese again. Yeah, it's not for the party, so they remove that. And then speed plus 250%. This is stage 2. So this is the difference between having an Enbu 8/9 or 9/9. So if you had them 8/9, so stage 8, You don't have the max level. This formation start at stage 1. Let's go back to the reset. There you go. So this is stage 1. So stage 1 is just disabling first strike, instant action, and insta cap. That's it. That's really strong. But the thing with this is there's a counter. You have to increase the counter to go up a level. So for stage 1, there's 3 levels and there's 10 counters. So it moves by 2 every time you change. And to hit max level, you need to hit 3. Oh, you need to hit 10 counter. You need to hit 5. But if you have them stage 9, counter is only 5. And then you change from stage 2, which is your starting point now. Because you start at counter 5, technically. So counter 5, you always start with stage 1 and stage 2. So you only need to do S1, S2, S1 3 times to hit stage 3. Stage 2 is usually where most of the fights will happen. If you get stage 3, that's pretty much where you get all the bonus then. So let's just go over why they're so good and why this formation. It's worth it to talk about these characters for quite a while, because this is the new type of units that we get. So they're both single target, and they did that on purpose. The reason why they're both single target is when they came out, we had once. This PvP only happened once. It's a 2v2 PvP. Normally, we've known normal PvP, which is 4v4, female PvP, which is limited to female characters, 40 cost PvP, limited to 40 cost. All of those are 4v4. The PvP we know now at the end of 2021 is 5v5. And female PvP and 40 cost PvP are gone. But during this time, we had a unique PvP where it's 2v2. And the thing with 2v2 is AoE characters were nerfed by like 99%. So if your AoE character was doing 1 million damage, they will be doing 10,000. That's why these characters being single target was really strong. So what they do is, if their enemy is not a Konoha, which is really strong because the best character in 2v2 was GK Kid Obito, because he was single target. And we had 5 lives to inflict seal. He was easily the best character. You could run Izuna also. Those two were pretty much what you saw. But this Madara and Hashirama, they did 9 additional attacks to non-Konoha. 250,000. That's already way higher than the 90 cost that we've seen. So that's really strong. Then this one is 7 additional attacks. It's slightly bit stronger at 350. S2 removes positive, special, and god state, while S1 removes terrain. Terrain removals nowadays is very important because this is the only way you can deal with locked terrain. Back then, there's not really a lot of... GK back then sucked. Just because they didn't do enough, because they had special state, and you could just remove special state. But now, you could also remove terrain, so that's what made him really strong. His formation, what's really good about his formation is we didn't care about most of it, we only cared about disabling turn manipulation. That's what I'm going to call it now. If you hit stage 3, your attacks pretty much ignores lives. So that was really strong. And then his abilities, of course, you started with that. He was fast. He had 3 revives. 3 revives is the average. I don't even want to say average. I think every Enbu has 3 revives, except for 2. Which is the original Enbu, which is Naruto and Sasuke, who had 5 revives, but they don't have formation. And yeah, that's them. And I forgot one character, which is Obito. When Obito came out, he sucked. When his LP came out, he was okay. But he wasn't really that strong. Because he did 2 additional attacks to gods. Gods were in the meta, so I guess that's okay. He was an insta-kill character, but insta-kill was not really something we were scared of. And his terrain didn't really do much. Yeah, so with that, we're just gonna skip over. Got a little better with LP. It's because he could AoE insta-kill, but that means he has to have his state up. And when want to look at when the next boot came out. This was during anniversary. So after him, we got the best 40 cost in the game. Possibly still is. It's debatable between Kabuto and Konan. We'll talk about Konan when we get her. But Kabuto, when you attack him, he inflicts all type of status effect. And status effect was very, very strong. So if you hit Obito, there was a chance that you could not move. Just because you might get hit by stun, charm, paralysis, fusion, poison. So just that, he just stands there, gets hit, and disables everything from the end. Very strong. And his kit, you don't even gotta talk about it. All he has to do is get touched. And the thing with Obito, or with Kabuto is, he was guaranteed. So if you didn't pull for Kabuto guarantee, you made a mistake. Because people would run him, especially if they don't have a Kizuna cost, at 0. And after him, we got our very first God Naruto. And this character on paper looked like he was garbage. When he came out, he was strong. The thing with him is that every turn, at the start of battle, or every turn, he grants himself his state is really, really strong because it's omniprotection. Omniprotection, something that not a lot of people have, especially AoE party, but he had it to himself. Cancel immunity, terrain immunity, illusion immunity, 0 chakra cost, there's an enemy Akatsuki, did type advantage, and etc. And you skip their action 3. And when this thing removed, and the reason why that's good is that now you have 3 when you skip your action, you take a turn. When he takes a turn, he gets his state back. So this state was pretty much unremovable unless you have someone that disables it. And I believe he doesn't care about that either. And he inflicts Intimidate. And then his S1 did no damage, but it's sealed. That sealed was really underrated. That comes into effect, especially if you're not fighting. You're fighting on Konoha team. Because he did 4 additional attacks to Akatsuki. Akatsuki, anytime Akatsuki becomes meta, you would come in and destroy them. And then if they're a nun or a non-Konoha, he did 2 more additional attacks. He did 6 additional attacks to Akatsuki. And he was very fast. Every time you remove the state, he gets 1 plus 150 speed. And he was very tanky. He had 4 revives if there was an enemy Akatsuki. And there was, because Kizuna Itachi was still being used. Because you wanted to run a 0 cost Kizuna, and the best choice was Kizuna Itachi. But yeah, he was really strong. And Pain. This Pain sucks in PvP, but he's my favorite 40 cost unit in the game, just because he's the best farmer. If you are gonna do key missions, you're gonna do potential missions, you're gonna do Rock Lee mission, if you're gonna do Guy mission, you're gonna do Jiraiya mission, I think if you do Nagato mission, but not Orochimaru mission, you wanna use him. Especially, you put him in the last slot. Give him the least priority, and he will insta-farm for you. Because his ability lets him insta-cast his S2. S2 is an AoE attack with no animation, so he's the fastest farmer in the game. Put it on auto, he will always get a turn, but you're not wasting turns with long animations. He's the best farmer in the game. I still use him to this day, and I'm using him right now as I'm farming potential mission. So, if you ever pull this guy randomly, be happy because now you have a very fast farmer. And he only does 1 hit. It doesn't do any additional hits that takes up extra time. So 1 hit, and that's it. No animation. Best farmer if there's a Konoha enemy. Not really that good in PvP, but who cares? I got him free multis, like first multi I believe in. I was happy with it. Then Hinata. This Hinata also changed the meta. Just because she's the most toxic unit to fight ever during this time. You saw a Hinata, you cross your finger. Hinata is the reason why you brought AoE single target characters in the game. She has 5 withstand. Your goal is to one-shot Hinata with your single target. Reason for that is that you hit her, you will inflict her, where is it? God Chakra Point. God Chakra Point was the best debuff in the game at this time. It says low chance, but that's a lie. Guaranteed. It's pretty much guaranteed. And then every time you take a life, everyone gets inflicted by block state. Hinata. What does the God Chakra Point do? Can't be removed. Can't be removed. Or immune to. So this will always hit. Doesn't matter what kind of Omni Protection you have, you'll get hit by this. All it did was cast speed -5. But back then, we don't have characters like now. If you fight Hinata now, and you are running Kizuna Madara, Hinata's a joke. Cast speed -5, I'll take it. It's because Kizuna Madara grants flash cast speed to everyone on your team. So that's easy. Don't matter. Take it, and then you'll still be fine. But back then, that didn't exist. You needed +5 cast speed, or cast speed is set to flash. So what you would run with this character, you would run someone that gives flash mode to everyone. And I believe there was one. Forget which character it was. There was one character in the meta that would give that. That would let you counter the cast speed -5. But if that wasn't enough, if you kill her, she inflicts block state, which is, I already talked about before, block state makes it so you can't use a skill. Yeah. Very toxic. I'm pretty sure if y'all played back then, you would know how strong that is. And how she got her nickname, the Queen. Sami sucked. No reason to talk about it. Itachi sucked. They were 40 cost base 7-star. Not really worth it. Ino sucked also. This was a time when the only 40 cost you would run was Kabuto. Or Konan. But she's not out of this time. Sakura. Sakura was a misunderstood unit. When she first came out, she wasn't used. Just because we didn't realize how strong she would be in the future. She got stronger the older she got. She has legendary potential now. She was one of the last units to get it. For good reason. So her S1, AoE charm, we were hitting around this time. We hit the point where we understood that if your S1 inflicts a status effect, that's really strong, because people are starting to become immune to negative special and God state like Naruto and Konan, but not a lot of people are becoming immune to status effect. So you're gonna hit them with status effect most of the time to disable their action. That's how we got past it. He also cleanses positive special and God state, as what I said before. Really strong. A lot of units are getting this. Team building during this time was, you wanted an Enbu, you wanted a 0-cost Kizuna, you wanted a special and God state removal. If you don't have one of those three, it's gonna be a rough time. And with that, you also did 3 additional attacks to non-Konoha. That's very good against none, but most of the time you don't use her for damage. Her S2 didn't matter, because this will get removed pretty easily. And it didn't really do much. All it did was grant instant action, I think. Yeah, when attack removes status effect, instant action. That was to herself, because her ability, this is why you wanted to use her. So what that is in English is remove party status effect every turn. That's why you wanted to use her, and she had 3 revive, which was the average point. We are almost to the anniversary mark at this point. We are, yeah. I think this was the last point for anniversary. Enbu, there's not a lot of Enbu that came out. None of these were pretty much usable. Anniversary came out. Danzo was the best Enbu in the game during this time. Might still is. People can argue his third is 3 Tails or Danzo, and then Kaguya. But yeah, I think this is actually anniversary. So we've reached anniversary. So next month is anniversary. I'm trying to think what happened. No, yeah, next month is anniversary during this. So before we go to anniversary, continue. We got our first summer character in the game. She's a 90 cost stat unit. That's 40 cost. People used her. She was really strong because her S1 had that high chance to stun. Again, status effect. And this is her 7-star form, I believe, which it did 5 additional attacks. The gods or GK. So He was a really strong if you didn't have a zero cost Kizuna. During this time, there's only 2 Kizunas. We get the third one during anniversary. Sasuke introduced Sasuke was the very first legendary potential character in the game. The thing with Sasuke is, told people back then, still telling them now, this Sasuke was a garbage unit that was carried by a mechanic. This kit was very bad. 3% plus 1.2 million. High chance to deal 3 additional attacks. And then you deal 5 additional attacks if their HP is less than 10%. What that means is, if you missed this, all you did was 1 hit. That was it. There was a chance where he did not do anything. Then after that, his terrain wasn't really that strong. All it did was reduce HP, poison. But a lot of people had terrain immunity. Or this terrain will just be replaced by something. The best part about him is the damage limit 1. What that did is that made him very tanky. Because if you saw a max legendary potential Sasuke, that's 26 million HP as an enemy. So you would need 26 additional attacks to kill him. He only had 1 life. But that's pretty much it. And that's a high chance. So there's a chance you just ignore this and just one-shot him completely. So yeah, this Sasuke was very bad. And I stand by it to this day. That this character was hot trash. That he was only carried by legendary potential. And after that, we get, this was some type of event. It might have been Minato or Kushina Day or Naruto Day. Forget. But this character came out and they were really strong just because they're an Enbu that's an AoE. So if you wanted to use an AoE Enbu, you would use these units instead of the other characters. Plus their single target inflicted illusion. So that was really solid. Their AoE just did a big damage because 947,000 for an additional attack was huge back then because damage limit doesn't exist. And then their formation was okay, but the reason why you ran them again is against against Hinata. So their stage 2, again, you start with if you have them stage 9. Like, if with your stage 2 of formation grants flash mode. So they would be your flash mode provider to counter Hinata. Very strong. After that, Karin was okay. 40 cost started to die. Then we had Hashirama and Izuna. They first came out, they seem kind of meh. But as time goes on, people realize that one thing, they remove terrain. Removing terrain is always good. But their S1 insta-kills. Insta-kill immunity doesn't exist at this point. So you can just insta-kill anyone that you want. And if it doesn't insta-kill, you have 4 additional attacks to just kill them naturally. And then their S2 was slightly weaker than Minato and Kushina, but it did AoE with additional attacks, so we like that. And I think they gave terrain immunity, which was really, really strong back then. And then after that, we got Hashirama V4. This Hashirama was really, really strong, especially since Uchiha is always meta. So again, back then, we have Omni Protection, but he seals and Jutsu seal. So really, really strong. 3 revives is okay. He instacast S2, which prevents everyone from buffing. And if you can prevent enemy from buffing, then that's really, really good. And that's pretty much it. And then I think he disabled instant action and skill dodge. Skill dodge doesn't matter. Instant action is really strong, but formation exists. But Hashirama cuts in, which means you can do your Jutsu seal. And then, funny enough, he removes your negative special and God State attack. So, really strong. This is I think I used 45 tags to exchange for this Hashirama, and it was worth it back then. Jiraiya, a base 7-star unit. He was okay. He was really strong, but no one pulled for him because anniversary was coming up. And then the free units was Naruto. Naruto was garbage because I think he's an attack damage character. Yep, it is. Sasuke was really strong for budget because if you attack him, he inflicts block. So that's really, really strong. So he's a block inflictor. Sakura 1010 wasn't that good. Kakashi guy was he was your instant guidance free to play character. And then the next character after that is Deidara. You want this character level 1. His birthday Deidara, so he has two things going for him. When you first start to fight, there's a chance that you inflict them with his God State. I believe his God State disabled action. Yeah, instant detonation. So it disabled action. So you can just start the fight disabling action. And if you kept him level 1, if he dies, he insta-kills someone. Very strong. Kakashi, the best character, the best end boo for Konoha. S1 is an AoE paralysis. And then they did 4 additional attacks, which is a lot. He had the best formation during the time. He had the normal turn manipulation disabled, enemy terrain immunity, which is the reason why Sasuke sucked, by the way. When he attack, he grants instant action and removes negative stuff. Then after that, he grants an additional action, and then every attack skip. Revive normal, so he was the best character during this time. And I should have talked about it, I missed it. But during this time was anniversary. They came out after anniversary. So all of these stuff, this is anniversary. So for anniversary, we got Kizuna, Naruto, and Minato. Minato sucked, because all he did was the damage reduction nonsense, which was really strong, but not good enough. And then after Minato, Naruto was your 0 cost state removal. But the reason why he's better than Itachi, he doesn't do that much damage unless it's a non-enemy. But it skips, and it's always hit. So he was your AoE, skip, state removal. And then if you can get your Kizuna state up, or like your B state up from your Kizuna skill, you just did a lot of damage. But I didn't use his Kizuna skill that much, if I remember correctly. Then he removes his negative state and special state. And yeah, he was your 0 cost state removal. That's when we started looking for Kizunas to be your state removals back then. Just so we could include stronger 90 cost, especially if they're max LP, where we ignored their kit and we just put max LP character in the team. Just because we don't have to worry about state removals, because Naruto handled that. In today's game, if you were running these two again, you would run Minato because Minato removes terrain. So Minato aged better than Naruto. Then after that, Zetsu sucked because you needed Kaguya, and Kaguya never came out. This is Hagoromo. Hagoromo was a pretty okay championship reward. Itachi. This is when Akatsuki came back, and boy, they sure made everything worse. Akatsuki meta was very, very toxic. Yes, Itachi will one-shot you if you're sealed, and the chance of you being sealed was 99%. Unless you have Sakura in your team. If you don't have P3 Sakura, and you fought an Akatsuki, you're pretty much screwed. So, he did AoE damage, he killed pretty much anyone he wanted. If they're sealed, you ignored multiple lives. His terrain has 80% damage cut, so this terrain needed to be removed ASAP. And then B plus 10,000% when you attack him, instant action. And you remove, and then you inflict seal. This is sealed state. No, this is normal seal. This is normal seal. And then speed is limited to 1500 for enemies. So he limits your speed, and he seals you. And then when you attack him, you get inflicted by illusion. But yeah, fun enemy to fight. And the reason why they were really strong is not because of Itachi. Itachi could be used today. That's how strong this character is. There's no reason why you can't use this character today. The character aged pretty well. But the reason why is because first, we got Konan. Konan is the best 40 cost, probably to age, because people were still using him just because of a certain GK that we will talk about pretty soon, I guess. But what she did was, there's a Konoha, you sealed them all at the start of the battle. Yeah. Her S1 skipped. So, if you're running Konoha, and you see Itachi, and you see a Konan, you were dead. And remember, this is the LP meta, so max LP Itachi will one-shot you. Damage limit doesn't exist except for Akatsuki because of pain. So yeah, Konan, preemptive seal. Itachi ignores lives if you're sealed. Pain. We're gonna skip the Enbu for now. We're gonna go back to them. 3 revives, immune to seal and jutsu seal. That's a lie. This is only immune. We don't care about immune, we want disable. Enemy terrain immunity, fixed damage immunity. We don't care about those. The thing we cared about the most is this state. Akatsuki's will, yep. Akatsuki's will, depending on how many Akatsuki you have on your team, you do different effects. If you have one Akatsuki, Omni Protection, already really strong. Insta kill immunity, really strong. Counters a lot of units. 2. Speed plus 300%. Damage cut is limited to 900,000. There was a bug in this game where you're fighting Pain and someone, well, not someone, if you remove Akatsuki's will, damage cut stays. So yeah, this is during a time when there is a bug and it's kinda showing what the future is like. I had this on stream where characters didn't do a lot of damage back then, so not a lot of additionals also. So I got pissed in stream just because I removed Pain's damage, his state from party, and he kept the damage limit. I was running Akatsuki. That's why this was painful, because I didn't have Itachi. So I was running Akatsuki versus Akatsuki, and my Akatsuki wasn't doing damage because they don't do additional attacks. So Akatsuki. So with that, I was hitting for 900,000 and the fights were taking forever. So that's just how bad that it was glitched. In this S1, we just remove states of non-Akatsuki. That's what I said before. You don't remove this for Akatsuki. I think I removed it by some other means. By maybe Danzo. And then he did 15 additional. Wrong there. But this character is the reason why they were really, really strong. We knew that we were going to get a birthday Itachi. 2 of them. Because the very first unit was an Itachi. And there was no chance that they were not going to release a second Itachi. And they did. They released Itachi and Nagato. Itachi and Nagato had the best state in the game, which is Koto Amatsukami. What that did is the exact same thing as Puppet State from God Sasori. So you took over one character, and if you remove the state, they die. So you would look at the team. The most used character in the game during this part was before Naruto, because people had him max LP because he was free. You would take control of the enemy's Naruto, and they would do the damage for you. And his S2 was your state removal, as well as it did a lot of additional attacks and damage. I think that's how I removed it. I removed it with this character, and I could just never get Koto Amatsukami up because of immunities and stuff. And they had the best formation also. So enemy terrain immunity, instant action, and stuff like that. And the extra turn is built in on stage 2, which was perfect. Stage 3 wasn't that reduction. That reduction was used against Summit Jiraiya in the future. So this didn't really matter for PvP, but it did for PvP. So yeah, that was your Akatsuki nightmare. It was Itachi, Konan, Nagato, and Itachi, and Pain. Those characters brought Itachi back, and Sage Naruto couldn't keep up because he didn't have his LP. Yeah, we got, where are we now? We're halfway through the month. We got Enbu, Sakura, and Tsunade. Simple. They enabled attack damage characters in the game. Problem is, their kit kind of sucked. But other than that, they have a really good formation. Their formation is very similar to V3 Sakura, so that made them very useful, even though their kit was kind of ass. After them, we had Blue Madara. Blue Madara replaced Izuna in non-teams, but you could run both together. So he inflicts illusion without needing an Uchiha. He has forward stance, sadly. I wish that was more. He didn't care about defense, I believe, and then first strike. And then he started with his Limbo State. Limbo State was Omni Protection, type advantage, instant. So generic, positive. The thing with this Madara that was very unique is he has a special effect that no one has till Kizuna, Madara, and Obito. That is if you're not a nun, set the enemy's HP to 1. That's it. And it set enemy HP to 1. And then if your HP is below 99%, you get 0 chakra on the cast. Yep, set their HP to 1. So if they have 26 million, that's now 1. Very strong. Really, he was used a lot. I got him off a ticket. I couldn't farm his gear, but he was still very useful. Then we got the free to play. This is the other unit that doesn't have 3 withstand. Yep, he has 1. Not really worth talking about. V11 Naruto. I believe this was birthday Naruto. Yeah, this is birthday Naruto. Part 1? No, this was not birthday Naruto. No, birthday Naruto was something else. Birthday Naruto was actually, yeah, no, my bad. Birthday Naruto was Kizuna Naruto. So, I missed the Kizuna actually. Before we talk about V11, talk about these characters. These characters suck. Not talking about them. These characters sucks also. Not talking about them. All right, moving on. This character's lead was the best lead in the game. He grants first strike to my village. Really, really strong. It just made it so you can clean up the fight before even starting it. And then he made everyone immune to illusion. So that's how you countered all the illusion nonsense. And then God State was speed plus 1000% if it gets removed. So you can just put it back up. And then very similar to Pain, depending on how many 5 villages that has the state. Omni Protection, extra turn, mortality, and then type advantage. That's 1 inflicted jutsu seal. It's kind of suck, which was just normal seal. It did 7 additional attacks. Kind of aged well because 7 additional attack is a lot. And then if he attacks 5 villages that's sealed, he did 10 more. 17. Not really gonna happen, but it's there. But most people use him just like me. Most people use him for his lead. His lead didn't really age well because it doesn't have insta-kill immunity. But it was strong back then. Birthday Sasuke, he sucks. Moving on. And then Enbu Jiraiya. And this is nothing. No, not Enbu, Summit Jiraiya. Nothing really to talk about. And then Naruto and Sasuke. This is. When was this? This was Android Anniversary. Yeah, this is Android Anniversary. So, these characters came out for free single every day. And any character, actually them. This is a really bad anniversary because this character was garbage. They introduced unique state in the game, which is a game breaking, but their unique state sucked. So Hinata removes state and I believe inflicts illusion when attacked. Naruto does a lot of damage. That's pretty much all they do. So moving on. And we have the most overrated character in 2021, in my opinion. She was only good when she first came out. Hot garbage. I hate this character. Character's trash, especially how well she is. So let's go over why I think she's actually bad. I forgot to go over her in my tier list, so let's use this as kind of replacement for that. You know, 3% plus 2 million to all enemy. I'm gonna be judging her for now, because I want to say she was good when she first came out, but she's trash now. So let's go over why she's bad now. That should be easier if I go to Japanese here. 3% plus 1 million. That's not it. There you go. 3% plus 2 million. Removes negative special in God State. Disables positive special in God State, and deals 5 additional attacks to a random enemy. Why is that bad? That's bad because that's not you're just hitting one enemy for 5 additional. That doesn't age well. Disable positive special in God State is really strong, but Izuna already does that, and you're running Izuna on the team, so that doesn't do much. Before I go over what her formation does, I'll go over her S2. 2 million plus 4 additional attacks. That's normal. That's okay. Then for non-enemies, you grant her unique state, which is called God's Tree Power. The God's Tree Power Damage limit is set to 600 for Devil's number, but it's a special state, so that's getting removed immediately. And then chance to insta kill when a non-enemy attacks. Okay, whatever. That state's gonna get removed. Reason why I think she's garbage is because of this next line. Her kit, you look at it without the formation, it's bad. All she does is remove special and God state. Randomly deals 5 additional attacks to one enemy. This is your 4 additional attacks a week, but 4 is below average. In my opinion, the average you want is 7 in the current meta. The one that's at the end of the year meta. Her formation. The reason why her formation is really bad. Terrains can't be deployed. That's trash. That affects you, that affects the enemy. Enemy, okay, you don't want the terrain up, that's fine. But you can't put your terrain up? None teams thrive on GK Madara. The new GK Madara. Are you telling me you want to run this Enbu just so Madara can't put his terrain up? And what does she bring instead? Nothing. If you run her, her kit is so bad that you have a negative on your team. She's hurting your team by existing. There's no reason to run this Enbu at all. If I was running a non team, I would rather use Tobirama and Izuna than this character. Just because of this one line. Terrains can't be deployed. I want to use GK Madara. I want to put my terrain up. You're telling me I can't put my terrain up? I don't care about the enemy terrain. I can destroy the enemy terrain with Rambu Naruto if I want to. I can destroy it with Tobirama and Izuna if I want. So, why does this character have to prevent me from putting up something that's really strong for me? Then after that, you have the normal disable stuff. High chance to disable actions until next turn. Okay, high chance to grant an extra turn. They already do that. Obito, not Izuna and Tobirama. I don't know why I keep calling Obito. Speed plus 500%. I don't care about 500%. Izuna Madara gives 1000%. Stage, third straight stage. Enemy cast speed minus 1 per turn. Doesn't matter. I already give them minus. I already disabled from Kizuna Madara. Cast speed is set to flash. Already does that. This character is overrated. Don't use her. If you have her in your box and you want to run a team with a GK on it, a modern day GK. Modern day GK is Pain, Madara, Sasuke, or Kid Kakashi. If you want to run those characters, bench the hell out of this Kaguya. Ignore this Kaguya. This Kaguya sucks. Most overrated character in 2021. This character sucks. Single target. Moving on. Terrain removal. That's all pretty much how he ended up. We've reached the point where we're talking about them in the modern meta. That's how it is now. We're about to reach Kizuna Kakashi. When we reach Kizuna Kakashi, we're in the modern meta. So, this character came out 806. Kizuna Kakashi comes out 915. So, this Gaara removes terrain. Sadly, we reached the point where we can't keep our God state up, so I can't consider any of these anymore. But what he does is he removes terrain. That's all he does. She does nothing. We reach the point. Kizuna Kakashi. Kizuna Kakashi was the first character in September. Yeah, first character in September. He was the best character in the game. So what he did was, they buffed him, by the way. Because when I first dated him, he was garbage. But then they buffed him to all hell. So he started with terrain. His terrain locks. Imagine if you're running Kakashi and you're running Kaguya in your team. You can't put his terrain up. His terrain is amazing. Instant action and paralyzes the enemy. So he insta kills if they're sealed. That's why I said Konan was the best 40 cost in the game, because you would just run those two together. And then he paralyzes when he gets 3 revive, which is He did a lot of additional attacks. I believe it's 10? 5 and 5? Yeah, 10. S1 seals. S2 insta-kills, sealed people. Very, very strong. PvP characters don't matter. Then we get to the man himself. Kizuna Kakashi. This character was the one that changed the meta the most out of every unit to ever come out of this game. S1 doesn't do much, but it's seals, so he works very well with his kid version. The reason why he's strong is because of his will to protect. We reached the damage cut meta, damage limit. So damage limit is set to 700,000, permanent. Omni protection, permanent. So that's it. Speed plus 1,000% also, but that's for one turn, which is kind of funny because this skill is literally similar to Kizuna Madara, but just way inferior. But this character is the one that changed the meta the most. 3 revives, and then you start the battle with will to protect. Very strong. Best character during this time. Then his Obito part, the opposite. He also does the will to protect, which is very strong. But the reason why I don't consider positive special in God state anymore because it is Obito. Cast speed -2 to -5, very strong. Disables positive special in God state. So yeah, this Obito, this character is the reason why that any character with positive special or God state don't matter. Because a debuff can't be considered because you can't put it. You can't get debuff because of will to protect, and you can't buff because of hatred destruction. So yeah, he does them all. Izuna Obito is probably slightly better than Kakashi, but like Kakashi just does more in his skill. That's why Kizuna Kakashi is what most people would run. But yeah, that's the reason why meta has changed. These characters garbage. I have them and they're trash. Single target, no additional attacks. Formation is okay, but Akatsuki sucked during this time. This Sasuke aged very well in my opinion. Really strong. So he did. So he started with terrain up. You 100% want his terrain up. He has the exact same similar lead to Naruto, but to Konoha only. Headshot to first strike. If there's a non-enemy, you gain plus 1500% skill damage, which doesn't really matter, but that's just kind of funny. This is very nice for fake damage. 3 revives. 3 revives is kind of a little behind average now. So what he does is 3% plus 1.8 million. Removes special in God state, which is okay. He only deals 6 additional attacks, and then he has a chance to seal. The reason why I liked him a lot is just because if there's ever a Naruto in the game, which there will be, because Kizuna Naruto is still one of the best characters in the game, he just gets turns. And then if you ever get your terrain up, insta kill immunity, type advantage for everyone. Oh yeah, Sasuke was the character that disabled skill damage buff, and then when an enemy takes an action, you seal them. So in the end, Sasuke is probably the worst of the GK, but is still very usable. Just because if he ever sees a Naruto, he's just gonna continue having turns. That's very, very strong. Just because he did 6. This is why 6 additional attacks is not that bad. I said before my average is 7. But if you're gonna continue having turn, if there's a Naruto in the game, you can run this guy with an Uchiha team. But if you run him on a Konoha team with Kizuna Naruto, he's just gonna get turns. And then we have this Minato. This Minato was overlooked in my opinion. This Minato is actually pretty strong. He has 10 additional attack base. We just ignore everything in his kit. All he does is 10 additional attacks, and that's good enough to be a DPS unit. He has 5 revives, which is your generic average revive now. Plus 1k speed, very strong. He can't keep his state up, but that's fine. His state gives him an additional 10 more. You could keep that up. That'll be really good. And I think he had a unique mechanic. Yeah, if you inflict this state to someone, it buffs the enemy, which is you, and then the enemy takes 1.8 million. And then these characters replaced Sasuke and Naruto and then Pain. Pain is one of the best characters in the game. probably the second best or the best, depending on how you look at it. So if you're looking for damage, you want GK Madara. I'm gonna talk about soon. I think he's next. If you want damage, you want GK Madara. If you want debuffer, you want GK Pain. So GK Pain, similar to Obito, disables. Speed limit is 1,000, really strong because we can reach 220k, like 20k speed. Speed limit to 1,000. Cast speed -2. Disable positive special link. And then grants cut into Akatsuki. Terrain is really strong. It locks. Makes you immune to fixed damage, which is strong because most additional attacks are fixed damage. So if you see Pain, you want to remove this immediately. And then after that, he disables turn manipulation. Type advantage. No, he had chance to insta-kill enemies or Akatsuki allies. And then you cleanse. You cleanse status effect, negative special in God state. Yeah, to pretty much selfishly, just like you remove that to yourself when you take a turn, but that's to all allies. But yeah, he is the best GK debuffer in the game, hands down. Then you have this character. This character is kind of, I'm gonna go back to, this is birthday Jiraiya. Or birthday birthday Jiraiya. But this character does a lot of damage if you can keep your state up. The problem is you can't keep the state up. His formation is strong, I believe. This is from. Let me look at it. With normal turn manipulation, nonsense. You cleanse when you get attack. So his formation is okay. Damage limit 761,000 and high chance for. His formation is okay. Yeah, he's not bad if you want to use him for Konohati. But the character that I missed, Izuna Naruto. So, the thing with this character is also in an overrated tier, but for a different reason. As a DPS, Kid Naruto is very strong. He can launch his skill 1, I believe, 3 times. So that's 12 additional attacks plus 6. That's 15 hits. 15 hits is a lot. So it's a really good DPS unit. So damage cut plus 30% built in, very strong. But I think you're gonna bypass that anyway because a lot of people have a lot of skill damage. And then this is Omni Protect plus the insta cast multiple times. The reason why I find this character overrated is because of this immune to enemy. The reason why I think that's very overrated is because if you want to run a formation yourself, because formation buff is very strong. So while this might be helpful for the enemy, because that would make sure that they can bypass us disabling their turn manipulation, the positive buff from formation is still too strong for this to. Damage limit is also very good, so this is why I think they're still really strong. In my opinion, they are the third most important character in the game. Number 1 is Kizuna Madara, and number 2 is Kizuna Kakashi, and then number 3 is them. And the thing that those 3 have in common is damage limit 700,000. If you played PvP without a damage limit, it's not fun. It just doesn't work. You will get one shot for no reason. This is a savior. But yeah, their Kizuna skill is nice too. If you get hit by a Kizuna skill in 3v3, you're gonna die. That's the character I missed. And then we're reaching the end. So this is Itachi and Shisui. This is the best Enbu in the game because their debuffing skill, which is Amaterasu, is every turn and when you attack them, HP minus 30%. What that means is against max LP units, when the damage limit is 700,000, HP minus 30% is equal to about 10 additional attacks. So that equals to about 7 million HP. Very strong. And then you have the normal cast speed reduction and then disabling stuff. So that's the reason why they're very strong. And then their formation, also really stupid. AoE damage, remove state, and this is your turn manipulation nonsense, but as well as illusion every turn. Cleanse cleanse, pretty much Omni cleanse, but to yourself. And then to allies, the enemies inflicted with Amaterasu, chance to inflict his other state. I think this is stage 3 though. And then he has damage limit plus 700,000 to Uchiha. That doesn't matter because Uchiha has a better damage reducer. And that's just, what is that? I guess I don't have it, but yeah, I don't think you use that much often, but it's still very strong. This is the reason why you want to use them, just because for debuffing stuff. And they're just really strong units. But GK Madara, in my opinion, is possibly the best DPS character in the game. So his unique state is it gives him 3 additional attacks that's penetrating, which means enemies that are immune don't matter because Madara will always hit them. Skill is always type advantage. It's gonna be type advantage. This is recast his skill, and then Omni Protection. So, the reason why I said he's the best DPS in the game is the exact same reason why I said Kaguya. You want Madara's terrain up. Because his terrain, for non-allies, you give all allies 2 penetrating additions. Best character in the game is a nun, by the way. Then immune to fixed damage. Immune to fixed damage was at Boot Pain before. If you look at over here, this is fixed damage. It means most additional attacks are mixed damage. It's either base damage is normal, rest or fixed, or vice versa, where base damage is fixed, normal, the additionals are normal damage. So if it's the other way around, which is the most common one, where normal damage is the base and additionals are fixed, you're immune to fixed damage. You got damage cut plus 700,000. And then if the enemy is a god or a Konoha, none gets a free cut in, and you cleanse positive special and god state to them. Oh, and then you skip them. So this very, very strong unit. The best DPS in the game, most likely. And if there's an enemy Konoha or god enemy, which there will be, guaranteed first strike, formation immunity, speed plus 1000%. So he gets very fast. 471 plus Kizuna Madara's 1200%, 2200. Gets fast. And then he changes his terrain at the beginning and every turn he attacks. And then he has 5 revives, so very, very strong unit. Probably the best GK in the game. Well, I can't say Pain is the best GK anymore because debuff is very important. But if your Kizuna already debuffs, might as well bring a DPS unit, and that's what Madara is. Madara is probably the second best character in the game. The first one is always tied to Madara, Kakashi, Naruto. Madara, you have Madara, GK Madara is the best character in the game. Just because most of those characters overlap in what they do. The thing is with Pain, I guess it's good to talk about Madara soon. Let's actually go over Madara soon, so let's just go over this Hashirama, which is the last character. This Hashirama doesn't do anything because they didn't give him a unique state. They kept God state to him. So his basic attack, additional attack, just doesn't matter. So Madara, Kizuna Madara. Kizuna Madara starts with other unique states in the Hobitos. So he starts with this. This unique state is it grants instant action per turn or when attacked to Uchiha. And none. But it's mostly Uchiha. Speed plus 1000%. Cast speed is set to flash. Damage limit is 700,000 and Omni Protect. That's stupid. That's everything you want in one kit. So Madara starts with that, as well as deals 7 additional attacks. It's a lot of additional attacks. Illusion, which is status effect, and Pale Violence. Pale Violence is high chance to disable skills. Just nonsense. They do 2 times damage. Each one is 35%. If you do the math, 35% is equal to 15 additional attacks, about 12 million damage. Then disables their positive special god state. If you ever launch their Kizuna skill, it's over anyway. So the reason why I think Itachi and Shisui, GK Pain, Izuna Obito go down a little bit. It's just because Madara exists, and he does what they do just slightly better. Not slightly better, a lot better. So there's no point of stacking up that debuff. Just because if there's a Kizuna Madara in there, you're gonna be cast speed is set in a flash anyway. And then your S2 is giving everyone plus 1200 speed. And that's the reason why I think this Madara is becoming very, very important. Because if you don't need debuffers anymore, you don't need GK Pain, what can you do? And the answer is simple. Bring more DPS in the game. Madara is the best DPS in the game. Just because, look at this. 3 additional attacks. Plus 3, that's 6. You can get your terrain up. Plus 2. That's 8. Plus your base damage, which is 9. You recast that skill. That 9 turns into 18. So he does 18 additional attacks. So 18 times 700,000. How much this Madara does. We look at Kizuna Naruto. 5 times 3. That's 13. That's 15. So Madara is doing 3 more additional attacks. Just for having the terrain up. And you don't have to keep it up. And a lot of those, 10 of those are penetrating additions. And these actually go to Kizuna Madara. Kizuna Madara, who normally does 7, is now doing 9. Obito, who's doing 7 here and 5 here, is doing 7 here and 9. So, this Madara's terrain is one of the best terrain in the game. And that's why I said Enbu Kaguya sucks. Just because if you run Enbu Kaguya on your Nun team, you're making sure you don't ever get this up. And why would you ever do that? Why would you want to prevent yourself from having the best terrain up? Just so you can have an Enbu that doesn't do much? So that's why if you're gonna look for an Enbu, Itachi and Shisui, you don't need them. Just because you want them for the debuff, but if you can't have that debuff, that's okay. So what this one does is inflicts illusion. You don't need illusion because you can always run Izuna or 6-path Madara, Blue Madara. So the only thing that they're really bringing is cleansing. And you don't need cleansing because you have Izuna Madara on your team. And then if you hit stage 3, you inflict them with the state, but that's not really needed. So the fun part about this, you can run whatever Enbu that you think. They don't have to be Nun or Uchi. You can run this Enbu if you really want, and that works 100%. You can run this Enbu, and you have a terrain removal. Oh, if I'm running this team, I'm 100% fine running this Enbu, just so I can have a terrain removal. This Kizuna Madara with GK Madara lets you do so much as long as you can remove the enemy's locked terrain. And there's only 2 characters in the game that you're gonna have to worry about that has locked terrain. That's GK Pain and Kid Kakashi. If you use an Enbu that can remove that, like look at this, you disable it, and I don't really care about anything else. And if I get stage 3, I ignore multiple lives. Enbu Hashidara is probably the best Enbu paired up with for the Uchiha. Sadly, they're not Uchihas, but to be honest, that is an Uchiha because you have Madara right there. So with that, how much did this meta change? Which is the original question I wanted to put. When the beginning of the month, the meta was still the same as how it is now. Still Kizunas. You're still running Kizunas. It hasn't changed. We hit a point where we got garbage Kizunas, but we went right back to Kizuna overtaking them. But the difference is, we're still removing states. That hasn't changed. That only solidifies that case. But the introduction of unique state makes it very, very important. And if I were to rank the top 3 characters in this game at the end of the year, number 1 is easily Kizuna Madara, best character in the game, not even close. The second is GK Madara, this Madara over here, because if you combine those two, you have the debuffing for Kizuna Madara and you have the big DPS from GK Madara. And the third best character that came out this year, probably gonna be a surprise. It's not them. It's not them. But the funny thing is, character, my opinion, probably Pain, right? Pain changed this meta just because of terrain, right? His terrain locks and he has all of these nonsense that you move. Plus he removes, this is the stuff that Obito does that he does slightly better. The thing is with this Pain, he has 5 revives. So he's also very tanky. GKs are back. Terrains are back. That's why you want terrain removals on your team. So in my opinion now, you're gonna run an Enbu. Hashirama is probably your best option. Just so you can remove terrains. So you can put your... Sometimes you don't have the luxury to wait for your Rambu Naruto to remove the terrain. So you need someone who does it. And that person is an Enbu that's came out in the beginning of the year. And to be honest, it doesn't matter if they're single target because most Enbu's kit are not that good. A lot of Enbu's kit are overshadowed by their formation. And just like how Itachi and Shisui is probably the best Enbu game, your kit is kind of overshadowed by the Kizuna Madara already. That's why these characters are bringing something that no one else does, which is this part. This is the part you want from your Enbu. You want someone that will take care of those locked terrains. So if you're running an optimal Nun team, which is just 2-person, which is just Kizuna Madara and GK Madara, you can put up that GK Madara terrain. Y'all will probably surprised to see that the very first formation unit in the game is possibly the most important formation unit at the end of the year. Just because of one thing that doesn't have to do with their formation. But the last thing in their formation is really, really strong. Yeah, I'll see y'all next year. Bye.